Shalom Aleichem. Today is the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya, the Rav Shulchan Aruch's Yahrtzeit Chof Dalet Tevis. I want to talk about the idea of Beis HaRav and Gehza Chassidim. And this is a topic that needs much more time than these clips can afford, but we'll begin, and maybe in future clips we'll do more. But basically, both in Lubavitch and in Brisk, there was a concept of Beis HaRav, that the family and the family household of both the Brisker, Reb Chaim Brisker, and his family and his parents and grandparents and children and grandchildren, and so too in the Schneerson and our Rabbeim's families, the idea of the family had special holiness, and no one had a right to mix into the family, to comment on the family, good, bad, ugly, maybe this, maybe that. A kind of an exclusivity. And this is an important idea. I personally had an experience where I wrote to Dr. Nissim Mengel, Rabbi Dr. Nissim Mengel, to endorse my first book, Your Better Self. And he wrote back to me that in Beis HaRav, the custom is not to give endorsements. He, working for the Rebbe so many years, and the Frierdiker Rebbe, was part of the Beis HaRav. And therefore, he shared with me this teaching. And the same when I wrote my book on Rav and the Rebbe, on Rebbe Soloveitchik, with the Yasha Ber Soloveitchik, I came across various testimonies and documents about the Brisk Beis HaRav, and as the Rav himself said, I am from Beis HaRav. And this also touches upon the whole idea of Gehza Chassidim. Gehza means a root. And in Lubavitch, there is a concept of Gehza Chassidim. So I want to talk a little bit about that. There are three periods: the Alter Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Alter Rebbe. I'm sorry, the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Rashab, and our Rebbe. And in conjunction with Yahrtzeit, we see that the Rebbe already in the first letter that he gave as instruction what to do for Yahrtzeit in 1951, the letter has a very important opening, and we'll talk about this more in the clips that I'm making Mitzvah Shem for his kashrus at preparation for Yahrtzeit. But in the letter, he writes there the following. He writes there like this. Where's the letter now? He says to the Mekashorim, to the Talmidei Atmimim, and l'chol hashayochim, to all those that are mekusher, to my father-in-law, to the Rebbe Frierdiker Rebbe, to the Talmidei Atmimim, those that learned in Tomchei Tmimim, and to those that have a shaykhus, an association. Clearly, he's identifying everyone, but nevertheless, he has three categories. People don't know, and it's important to know historically and factually, most Lubavitch Chassidim today do not come from pure blood, from pure, authentic Lubavitch, starting with the Alter Rebbe. In fact, I jokingly say to my friends, I'm more Gehza than they, because my family, the Dolphin side, comes from Vizhnitzer Chassidim, from Romania, 150 years from the Holy Ziddichover, as Brenta Feierl in Ziddichover, to the Antonier, to the Vizhnitzer. So we can track 150 plus years straight back. Gehza Vizhnitz. But of course, we're talking about Lubavitch. Not many Lubavitch Chassidim today can say they go back to the Alter Rebbe. You can count them on your hand. And I'd rather not say names because I know the names, I've studied the names and the families. And very few go back to the Alter Rebbe. Most that do consider themselves Gehza go back to the Tzemach Tzedek. So, for example, in my family, the Futterfasses, Reb Mendel Futterfass and his father, Reb Menachem Mendel, and his aide Reb Chaim Futterfass, they go back to the Tzemach Tzedek's time, and before that they were Misnagdim, Litvikis. And there's a story how they came to the Tzemach Tzedek. So the beginning of that family was from the Tzemach Tzedek. Let's talk about the Rashbatz, Reb Shmuel Betzalel, the famous Mashpia and teacher of the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab. The whole story is written up in Atomim that he was a Misnagid, and he got klept for becoming, he got hit for becoming a chassid, and he said himself, a chassid was a Misnagid was vers a chassid darf haben na andere birur. A Misnagid who becomes a chassid has to have a completely different refinement process. So he too begins with the Tzemach Tzedek. Then comes the Rebbe Rashab. And the Rebbe Rashab said that everyone and anyone is welcome to Teim Chetmim as long as they have Yiras Shamayim and they're looking for the truth. No previous background of Hasidic pedigree or great knowledge. That's not the criteria for joining Teim Chetmim and Lubavitch Yeshiva and becoming a Lubavitcher. And therefore, like a person, the Mashgiach, Reb Shilem Kuraten, right? He came from a gymnasium. He came from a secular environment. But he became so frum and so chassidish and so Lubavitch that he became the famous Reb Shilem that all the Mashpiyim would talk about. I can go on and on and on with names and names and names and go over everyone and point out to you historically, not Baba Mises, when they came, how they came, who brought them, who didn't bring them, etc. When the Rebbe Marash took over Lubavitch after Tzemach Tzedek's passing, there was 6 brothers who became Rebbes. Well, there was a big fallout at the time, and most joined other groups. The Kopister was known as had the largest group of Chabad Hasidim, and the Rebbe Marash, who stayed in Lubavitch and became the Lubavitcher Rebbe and is our 4th Rebbe, he had the smallest group. I heard once from Ben Sion, Binyamin Altois, Olav Sholem, he told me that why were the Rabbeim, he feels, why the Rabbeim so makar of his family, is because at the time when the Marash and the brothers went, they became Rebbes in different places, most left, and his family stayed with the Marash. Right or wrong, I don't know, but that's an interesting insight. How many of Gehza Lubavitch today can say that? Very, very few. Because many went to the Kopister. And they won't acknowledge it, but I'm telling you because I know the facts. And how do I know the facts? Because I've studied the facts. And I have documents. So I'm not here to tell you that I'm the big, Yadin. I know that's not the point. The point is that, is Gehza important? Absolutely. How is it important? If you make it important. And the Rebbe, in that Yud Shvat letter, already removed the false Gehza and brought in today's real Gehza. What's today's real Gehza? If you do what the Rabbeim want, the Alter Rebbe's Yahrtzeit is today, the Frierdiker Rebbe's Yahrtzeit is coming up Yud Shvat, the Rebbe's Nesias for 70 years, Yud Shvat, then you are a Gehza Lubavitcher. If you happen to have also a pedigree and you have yichus, it's a gewaltige addition. But know that the addition needs to be tuffle, ancillary to the ikar, and the ikar is, what are you doing today to be a Lubavitcher chassid? So as we go to Yud Shvat, and we talk about the dynasties of Lubavitch and Brisk, and we remind ourselves of the Beis HaRav, we also remind ourselves of the importance of Gehza Chassidim, and everyone today, if he or she just wants to be a Gehza chassid, they can be so. May Hashem help that we see this in our day in the schus of the Baal HaYelula. Reb Shneir Zalman ben Baruch, the Alter Rebbe, should be merachem al Klal Yisrael And through our learning of both his Tanya and his Shulchan Aruch, and not just us learning, but the whole world learning, his dream and fulfillment that he brings in Perek Lamed Vav in chapter 36 in Tanya, that the Hashem created the world, to make a home, an abode for God, right here on earth, bitachtenim, as elaborated upon at great length in the Maimar of Basar Ligani, Tafshin Yud Aleph of 1951. May Hashem help that we see it very speedily with the coming of Mashiach b'mheir v'yameinu. Amen.